we're Chris and Ashley. We are a marriage surviving sexual addiction and infidelity. I want to just kind of give a heads up of what the next few videos are going to be. We won't be able to get all those done tonight. Chris is in busy tax season. He's an accountant, so he's barely keeping his eyes open. But we want to
That's just everyday life.
We want to go over some of the great questions and responses that have been out there, and I'm going to give a quick overlook of what all our videos are going to be, and then only focus on a couple of them tonight. So be looking for these. But here's some of the questions and comments that we have got. How to forgive your partner, how to create boundaries, what to expect on the journey to healing, and necessary steps to make the relationship better. Description of timelines of things, emotions, optimism immediately after, and then 4 years to the point where we're at now, when I felt like things were getting better, how we both have matured with regards to the relapse, how has Chris grown in his healing, and then how can you prepare your kids for not falling into the same pornography trap. How much do we share with them, both trauma as the spouse and addiction from the addict? And then there was one particular comment that went over when the addict relapses and then is no longer transparent. So they're transparent for a while and then they stop being transparent. Is this something that has happened to us? And how do we recover after something like that? Because this response is, can you ever really trust again? So the one that I'm going to go over really quick right now is a description of the timeline, because that one I'm going to keep probably pretty short, because that one's going to look so very, very differently for everyone. Because it all depends on how you're both recovering in your recovery process. And it depends, like
individuals are just different.
Everybody's different. But my timeline, I feel like it was hard, really hard, but I do feel like it went fairly fast because he chose right away to be open with other people so that we could talk about it. Sometimes people don't want to go to counseling or talk to anybody at all. Like I've heard of a lot.
Keep it secret. Don't talk about it. This is,
I've heard a lot of addicts say you can't even tell your family, nothing. He was very open right away. Now, transparent, that's a different story. We're going to go down that path on this video as well.
And then I think it's also important to know, the timeline, whether it's quick or not, that doesn't mean that it's just smooth. Yeah,
no, not smooth. So because of some of those things, my healing was affected by his healing and the fact that he wanted to heal. He may not have always done the steps that he needed to heal, and I didn't always do the steps that I needed to heal perfectly. But because we both wanted to heal, I feel as if that sped up our healing process, if that makes sense. So
it allowed us to work together.
Yeah, to give
instead of against each other.
To give a quick timeline of everything, I would say for the first 3 months of finding out about his addiction, I feel like I just was in complete and total shock mode. It was the whole really struggling to get out of bed, to eat, to do anything. Like for 3 months, it was really, really hard. And then after 3 months, it went into the counseling and the, we did that right away, but I feel like counseling was starting to get us somewhere and things like that. And so for the first 2 years after finding out, I would say that I was triggered multiple times a day. And I was constantly in pain. This was always in the front of my mind, always, no matter what I was doing or, what I was, trying to accomplish that day, this was always in the front part of my mind. And like family pictures and pictures of our past, everything was a trigger, everything for the first 2 years. And then after 2 years, I remember it was like 2.5 years. And keep in mind, what was it? Was it after the first year of finding out is when you started getting a recovery process? Or not a recovery process, but you hadn't had a relapse?
Well,
because it's been almost 3 years,
it's been
right?
3.5.
3.5.
And we're coming up on 4.5. So it was...
So about a year into finding out, almost, right?
Well, my last one would have been, so we found out June, and it was, August of the following. So it was just over a year. Took just over a year before kind of finally getting control.
Yeah. So
and that includes lots of, again, she mentioned openness. Yes, there was openness. Transparency, not so much.
Yeah. So for the first 13 months, especially when he was still acting out all the time, and when he was lying to my face all the time, I was a total wreck. And then we had a turnaround after that point. So I remember 2.5 years in, one day towards like almost dinner time, I thought, oh my goodness, I haven't thought about this once today. And I remember feeling like, finally, I feel like I'm finally breathing. And then about 3 years in, because we're about 4.5 years, 3.5 years in, about a year ago, is when I started to feel like I was falling in love with my husband all over again. Because I never stopped loving him, but when he broke so much trust, a lot of the in love feelings had diminished. They had to be rebuilt and everything like that. So I started to truly fall back in love with my husband, and a lot of safety had been developed, and a lot of trust had started to somewhat come back. Trust is still tricky. You can't.
Trust as a word probably shouldn't be used.
Yeah.
It's not about building trust or, why don't you trust me, or what can I do so you'll trust me.
Yeah.
Creating safety is probably a much better way to think about it. And so 4.5 years in, I don't think we talk about trust so much as we talk about things to create safety. And because that's one, I don't trust myself. So to think that my wife should trust me is, I think, a ridiculous thought, because I don't trust myself. So
yeah. So there's a lot there. And then now here at 4.5 years, it's gone to a lot more of our normal regular life. Now, he says that he has been sober for 3.5 years. I don't ever say that.
Yeah, I like the way she said. I think that's the proper way to say it, because again, if she just says, okay, he's been sober for 3.5 years, how does she know that other than that's what I've told her?
Yeah.
And though it's the truth, if she just accepts that blindly, and then it's trust. Then it's trust again. And I think if it's just trust, which honestly, trust is ideal.
Yeah.
But this is a major trust breaker.
Yeah.
That can't just be given back.
And if you're married to an addict, then I'm sorry, how many times have you lied to my face? Yeah. And flat out said, look me in my eyes. And he was lying to me.
And that's even in the recovery. That's in the, okay, everything's out.
Yeah.
Those 13 months, that was happening.
That was within the recovery process. So trust. So when he says he's been sober for 3.5 years, let me be very clear. I very much so hope that is 100% true. But I think people still really struggle with me when I say he says he's been sober for 3.5 years. They're like, well, why don't you say it?
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough faith in your husband, then he's never going to get recovery. And you're just making him feel like that. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's that, like,
they think I haven't forgiven him
come to the
enough.
defense. That's not forgiveness.
Yeah.
Sure it is.
It's surprising to me how much the addict is, for lack of a better word, coddled. I don't mean to come off abrupt or whatever.
Scare the addict off and stop recovery.
You don't want to scare them so they run and go act out on whatever their addiction is, drugs, pornography, whatever. So we coddle them. I personally don't take that approach. I don't think it's helpful, and I think he's a big boy and he can make sure that he
I know it's not helpful to me.
Finds a way to recover. Yes, sometimes.
And the other extreme isn't helpful to either. I mean, you don't want to be, beat someone down, but you also don't want to coddle. And there's a happy medium in there.
Yeah, there's a good medium. So when I say that, this is why I say that. It's he's told me so many lies, but I choose to live every single day hoping that that's the truth. And I treat it as such, and I live that way, and I'm happy that way. And if I find out something's wrong, then we'll go to that point. If I find out there's been a lie in that 3.5 years, then we'll deal with it when it comes. But for now, I choose to live my life as I believe that he says he's sober for 3.5 years, and that's how we move forward. But I just want to put that out there because I think so many times people can make us feel really guilty. Like if your husband says it's been, a month, and you're like, and they're like, well, why are you second guessing him? He says he's been clean for a month, especially like other family members or really close friends. Like they come, to an addict's defense really fast. Yeah. And it's like, well, because I'm his spouse and he's lied straight to my eyes and yours and everybody else's around them. That's what addicts do. It's unfortunate. I know they're not trying to hurt us. I know they're not trying to deliberately, crush our soul, but that's what they're doing. So, unfortunately. So I just wanted to be clear on that. I wanted to be clear that that's what he says and that's what I hope for. And
I want to be clear that I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah.
I think I can't stress enough that I don't trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also important to understand that obviously if there is a gut-wrenching feeling like something's not right, it isn't just, well, he says. Yeah. I mean, we obviously talk about that and we clear the air. We find out what's causing that feeling. And sometimes it's just, again, a lack of creation of safety.
Yeah.
We're 4.5 years in, almost 3.5 years sober, but there's still things I forget to do or don't do that are those safety builders. In this past week, there's been 2 conversations of things that I've been doing that are not creating safety. And that isn't a bad thing. Those are good discussions to have because they keep me on target and remind me, okay, I need to do these things. And for somebody who doesn't trust himself, not doing those things that create safety are bad for her. They're also bad for me, the addict, because those are going to take me down a path. So healthy discussions is great. Don't just, well, he says, so I believe him until I know different.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk about it if I feel different. No, discussion is good.
Yeah, approach it. And I approached it in a way where I'm like, I remember one relapse in particular, I had to ask over and over. It was about 15 times where I'm like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And I just kept repeating it over and over, and he was getting more and more frustrated. And I just stopped, looked him dead in the eye, and was like, it does not feel right. Tell me why. And he finally breaks down and says, well, I've been relapsing for 6 weeks. So these kinds of things happen. And that was, so we've been married for 11 years. And I found out at 8 years. And that was when we were married for 9 years. When
it was.
I asked him over and over and over and over and over again.
7 or 8 months into the knowing.
Into the knowing and the starting the recovery process. So this video is kind of all over because timeline is such a hard thing to give just because everyone's so different, and it's truly going to depend on the addict's desire to heal. You know, and more than desire to heal, because I think a lot of addicts have that huge desire to heal. So I'm gonna reword that and say the addict's work behind the desire to heal. Because a lot of times Chris would have desire at the beginning, but the work was not really there. And so it just kind of depends on when they're gonna do the work, because when the addict is doing the work is when it's also helpful in the timeline process for both parties. So I hope that's helpful. That one's kind of hard just because it's all over the place, but time, and nobody wants to hear that. But if you give yourself time, and if you give yourself the knowledge of knowing that it can get better, if the work is put in, it will get better, you know. Yeah. And not right away, because even when he was doing all the right things and was working really hard, I still sometimes was really upset. Sometimes when he was really, really good, it felt like, finally, I'm allowed to downward spiral, because it seems like for so long, if you're married to an addict, you're holding down the fort, you're holding down the kids, you're holding down, you know, everything else that's going around. So then if he's finally on a good note, a lot of the times it seems like at the beginning, we vice versa. Mm-hmm. And it would be like kind of annoying, because he'd be like, I'm finally good. Why are you so upset now? And it's like, because I finally can be, you know. So that's what we have timeline wise.
Yeah, I think, you know, one takeaway to know is it's we talk timeline, like you can ask yourself, is that until it gets better? Is that until it's great? Is that until, you know, it's no longer an issue? It's a lifetime, and it will be the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But working together, it can be so much better. I mean, it's not going to always be the late night conversations that let's dig it all out, let's figure it. But it's going to be a lifetime. It's a lifetime of wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, husband's 10 minutes late getting home. Where is he? A late night text message. What is it?
That happens. You know. That's happened this week, you know? And we're 4.5 years in, feeling great about things, and that stuff still happens. So it
gets better, but it's going to be your life.
It is a life sentence. I've said that several times. When you're married to an addict, recovering addict, doesn't matter. It's a life sentence, and I say that with a heavy heart. It is hard. It is sad. But somebody in their comments asked for optimism. I will say this. Do I feel like this journey has been 100% worth it? Yes. Every tear, every fetal position, heart-wrenching, soul-crushing moment has been worth it when we both have put in the work. The other optimism, I would say that when I finally compartmentalized my husband's addiction and realized that he's two different people, that there's the addict and then there's the man I married. That because for a while when this comes out, I had a really hard time distinguishing that there was two people in there. Like it just kind of felt like everything was a lie. All the fun we had, all the laughs, all the good times, all the family pictures, everything was a lie. And it was not. So that's the biggest optimism that I could leave, is that understanding there's two people inside your spouse. There's the addict and the spouse you fell in love with. And so those happy times, those times that they say such sweet things to you, those times that they are playful and having fun, they're not lying just to get what they want, or becoming really good at lying about different things to ease you so that they can go on doing what they want to do. Like, that's what I felt like for a long time. No, those people are real. It's just it's just there's an addict inside of them, and there's so many quotes out there, like there's two wolves. The wolves,
whichever one you feed,
whatever ones you feed is the one that you become. Well, that's the thing, is sometimes in our marriage, Chris fed the addict wolf way more than he felt fed the husband I fell in love with. And so those times were really hard. But the majority of our marriage, he's fed my true husband, who I married, who I fell in love with at the beginning, and everything like that. So that's the optimism I have to leave, that it's okay to laugh and have fun, even though you're worried that your addict spouse is a snake in the grass. I hate to say it like that. It's harsh, but like for so long, I kept being like, I can't be myself around him. I'm going to be tense. I'm going to be crazy. I'm going to be everything because he's a big fat snake in the grass. And again,
and I was, the
more optimistic that I can leave is that, yes, though that's very true. Unfortunately, there's some big truth to that. There's also so much truth in the fact that I was still able to play and have fun and love. If you feel like doing that, if you feel like giving a hug, if you feel like you're like, I just need you to, cuddle me and make me feel okay today because you're having a bad day, or if you feel like you want to go be playful, or if you feel like you want to put all this talk on pause and, go to the park and swing, go do it. That's the biggest thing I would say. Bring some fun back into your life. If you need to pause all this heaviness, it's heavy, and take that time, because that is what is very helpful for us as well. So again, I'm sorry, the timeline, it's just a hard one to gauge. But hopefully that one helps. We're going to do another one tonight on one of the comments that I think is just what everybody hits. So we'll stop this one and we'll go to it talking about transparency and things like that. So thank you.